The Roman Emperor, Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king himself, ate the seventh item on this list at least twice a week. And modern food scientists say it contained enough lead to cause permanent brain damage. The 14th was so expensive that serving it could bankrupt a middle-class family for a year. The third, the dish that gladiators and senators actually shared, is something you have probably eaten this week. Though the Roman version would make you violently ill within hours, here is what the History Channel never told you about the Roman Empire. Ancient Rome was not just togas and marble columns and men in red capes delivering speeches. It was hunger. Real grinding, bone-deep hunger that made people eat things. No Hollywood epic would dare put on screen, because here is the truth nobody wants to talk about. When Julius Caesar returned from conquering Gaul, covered in glory and leading his legions through the streets of Rome in triumph, he was not feasting on roasted peacock and wine from golden cups. He was eating the same fermented fish sauce that slaves poured over moldy bread in the slums of the Subura. The same sauce, the same bread, the empire ran on it. These 25 foods built an empire that lasted 1,000 years and conquered 3 continents. Let us count them down. Number 25, Posca, the universal drink of Roman soldiers. Legionnaires filled their canteens with pasca. Vinegar cut with water and herbs. Wine that turned to vinegar was worthless for drinking but mixed with water. It killed bacteria. The taste was sharp and astringent. When Christ was crucified, Roman soldiers offered him pasca on a sponge. It was not cruelty. It was the only thing they had. Number 24, moretum, the cheese spread that fueled an empire. Soldiers and farmers ate moretum daily, spreading it on bread, aged sheep cheese pounded with garlic, oil, celery seed, rue, and coriander until smooth. The smell cleared rooms. The garlic lingered for hours. Archaeologists found ceramic mortars in nearly every Pompeii dwelling. Sides stained green. Bottoms worn smooth from endless use. Number 23, silphium, the most expensive ingredient on this list and the only one extinct because Romans ate it all. Silphium grew only in coastal Libya. The resin seasoned nearly every wealthy dish, tasting like garlic and truffle with a bitter finish. A pound sold for the price of silver. By Nero's reign, it was gone. The last stalk was presented to the emperor. He ate it. Modern botanists cannot identify it. Only images on coins remain. Number 22, flamingo tongues. Roman excess becomes genuinely grotesque. Wealthy Romans ate specific parts of exotic birds chosen because obtaining them required killing hundreds of animals. Flamingo tongues were served at expensive banquets, boiled and dressed with fermented fish sauce, honey, and spices. A single dish required 40 flamingos. The birds were captured in North Africa, slaughtered on site, tongues removed, packed in salt, and shipped across the Mediterranean. The rest was discarded. The taste was delicate and fishy, but flavor was never the point. The point was demonstrating you could afford to kill 40 flamingos for their tongues. Emperor Elagabalus served them at a banquet costing more than 500 Roman soldiers earned in a year. Number 21, pullum frontonianum, chicken prepared in a way that would horrify modern health inspectors. Take a whole chicken, pound it flat without removing bones, quat it in garum, oil, wine, and leeks. Wrap it in a pig's bladder and boil for 3 hours. The bladder kept the chicken compressed while cooking. The bones softened enough to eat. Romans ate the bones. They did not consider this unusual. Archaeologists examining Roman dental remains consistently find bone fragments embedded in molars. Number 20, garum. First pattern break. Every single item so far mentioned garum. Here is what it actually was, and why it mattered so much. Fermented fish sauce made by packing small fish, usually anchovies or mackerel, into large clay vessels with salt, then leaving them in direct sunlight for 2 to 3 months while the fish slowly liquefied. The smell during fermentation was so overpowering that garum production facilities were required by law to be located outside city walls downwind from residential areas. Citizens complained constantly. City officials passed ordinances. The smell did not care. The finished product was a clear, amber liquid, intensely savory, salty, and fishy, stronger than modern Southeast Asian fish sauce, but similar in concept. Romans put garum on everything: fruit, bread, vegetables, meat, porridge, desserts, even wine. It was Roman salt, and the empire consumed it by the millions of gallons every single year. The city of Pompeii alone had at least 5 major garum production facilities operating when Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD. One of them was in the process of fermenting what archaeologists estimate to be 10,000 gallons when the volcano buried it. The ash-preserved jars still full of 2,000-year-old fish sauce, the jars are in storage. They have not been opened. Nobody wants to know what 2,000-year-old fermented fish smells like. Number 19, sow's womb. The recipe that defines Roman ambition and indifference to animal suffering equally, the womb of a pregnant pig that had not yet given birth was considered the finest cut. It was removed, stuffed with ground pork, pepper, garum, wine, and pine nuts, sewn shut, then roasted for 4 hours. The texture was unlike anything else, tender but dense. This dish was expensive because timing was everything. A sow had to be slaughtered at exactly the right point in pregnancy. Too early and the womb was too small. Too late and it was considered inferior. Wealthy Romans kept breeding sows for this purpose. Number 18, libum. The ritual cake eaten at every Roman religious ceremony. Flour, sheep cheese, egg, and honey mixed into dough, shaped into small cakes, placed on bay leaves, and baked. The taste was mildly sweet and savory, with bay leaves adding herbal bitterness. These cakes were offered to household gods at family shrines and eaten after rituals concluded. Romans believed gods consumed the spiritual essence, leaving the physical cake for humans. Every Roman citizen ate libum regularly. The recipe was so standardized that measurements preserved in religious texts spanning 5 centuries never changed. When a soldier in Britain made libum for his household gods, he used the exact same recipe his grandfather used in Rome. Number 17, minutal. One of the most complex recipes in Roman cooking, minutal was a stew requiring precision. Diced pork browned separately, leeks caramelized until golden, wine reduced with honey and garum until syrupy, all combined with pepper, lovage, and cumin, then simmered until the sauce coated a spoon without dripping. The recipe instructs serving immediately while bubbling. Roman cooks understood carryover heat and resting time. They developed techniques modern cooking assumes were invented in 18th century France. The techniques were Roman first. Number 16, sala catabia. The Roman salad that was not really a salad. Bread soaked in vinegar and water until soft, mixed with chopped onions, chicken, cheese, pine nuts, pepper, and cucumber, then dressed with oil and garum, eaten cold as a complete meal, not a side dish. The texture was soggy and deliberately so. The bread was meant to disintegrate and bind everything together. This was Roman fast food. No cooking required. Assembled in minutes. Filling enough for an afternoon of labor, every tavern served it. Prices were regulated by law as a staple food. When Pompeii was excavated, archaeologists found Salacatabia still in serving bowls buried by ash. Number 15, peacock, second pattern break. The most famous Roman luxury food and a dish that tasted significantly worse than almost anything else on this list, peacocks were not eaten because they were delicious. They were eaten because they were expensive, difficult to raise, and stunning when served whole with feathers reattached after roasting. The meat was tough, dry, and gamey, similar to old rooster. Roman cooks basted continuously and served it with intensely flavored sauces to mask the taste. The poet Martial wrote that peacock was prized for appearance over flavor, which was Roman, for it tastes bad but looks impressive. Wealthy Romans served it anyway because the point was never eating well. The point was showing you could afford to eat poorly in expensive fashion. Number 14, mulsum, honey wine consumed at every level of Roman society and a chemical disaster waiting to happen in every single cup. Mulsum was made by mixing honey into wine at a ratio of roughly 1 part honey to 4 parts wine, then allowing it to age for at least a month in sealed containers. The aging process was done in lead-lined vessels because lead made the wine taste sweeter and less acidic. The chemical reaction was predictable. The lead leached into the wine with every passing day. Romans knew the wine tasted better from lead containers. They noticed the difference immediately. They did not know they were being slowly poisoned with every sip. Chemical analysis of Roman skeletal remains consistently shows lead levels high enough to cause cognitive impairment, infertility, kidney damage, and early death. The wealthy drank more mulsum than the poor because they could afford it. Lead poisoning was a disease of the Roman elite. The people making decisions were the people being poisoned. Emperors drank mulsum daily. Several showed symptoms of severe lead toxicity in their later years. Claudius had a tremor in his hands. Nero was erratic, impulsive, and increasingly paranoid. We cannot know how much was personality and how much was neurotoxins slowly destroying their brains. But every drop of sweetened wine they drank was pulling them closer to madness. Mulsum was served at every banquet. Senators drank it. Generals drank it. Magistrates drank it. The same men making decisions about law and war and the fate of millions were doing so with measurable brain damage. Number 13, ostrich, Roman exotic meat taken to logical extremes. Ostriches were imported from North Africa, kept in menageries, slaughtered for banquets, and served roasted with sauce made from pepper, lavage, garum, wine, and honey. The meat was lean and faintly gamey. A full-grown ostrich served 30 people. The eggs were more valuable. A single ostrich egg equaled 24 chicken eggs and was served as spectacle, boiled whole and presented in the shell with the top removed and interior filled with spiced wine sauce. Emperor Elagabalus reportedly served ostrich brains at a banquet where every dish contained brains of a different exotic bird. Guests were required to identify each by taste. There is no record of anyone succeeding. Number 12, Rabbit in complex sauce. Rabbit cooked in a sauce requiring 13 ingredients and 3 cooking stages. The rabbit was roasted first, then simmered in wine. Vinegar, garum, honey, pepper, lavage, cumin, coriander, rue, laser root, dates, and pine nuts. The sauce was thickened with breadcrumbs. The result was sweet, sour, salty, and spicy simultaneously. This was Roman cooking at its most advanced. Every ingredient served a purpose. The vinegar brightened the meat. The honey balanced vinegar. The garum added depth. Nothing was random. Every measurement had been tested over generations. When modern chefs recreate this using exact ingredients and methods, the result is genuinely delicious. Romans knew what they were doing. Number 11, Lucanian sausage. The ancestor of every Italian sausage eaten today, Lucanian sausage was ground pork mixed with pepper. Cumin. Savory, rue, parsley, and garum, stuffed into casings. Then smoked over bay and cypress wood for 3 days. The smoking preserved the meat and added aromatic flavor Romans considered essential. These sausages lasted months without refrigeration. Soldiers carried them on campaign. Travelers packed them for journeys. Sausages made in Lucania were shipped across the empire as premium products. Romans in Britain could buy Lucanian sausages imported from the Mediterranean at 3 times the price of local versions. Soldiers from Italy paid without hesitation because it tasted like home. When Rome fell, the recipe survived because it had spread too far to disappear. Modern Italian sausage use variations of the same technique. Number 10, flamingo, not just tongues, the whole bird. Flamingos were raised in captivity for the table, fed diets to keep flesh pink, and slaughtered young when meat was most tender. The taste was like duck, but fishier, which makes sense because wild flamingos eat shrimp and algae. The pink color came from the same compounds that make shrimp pink. A roasted flamingo was served whole, with neck curved and head attached. Carving was performance. The server removed skin in a single sheet to reveal pink flesh beneath, then sliced thin portions and drizzled them with garum. The most expensive part was not the meat. It was the spectacle. Keeping flamingos alive in captivity was difficult. They required specific diets, controlled water, and constant attention. Most died before reaching slaughter weight. Serving whole roasted flamingo demonstrated you had resources to waste money on birds that probably died before you could eat them. The inefficiency was the point. Number 9, barley porridge. The meal gladiators ate every day. Gladiators were fed barley porridge, beans, and occasional meat. But barley was the foundation, boiled with water until thick, seasoned with salt and oil, sometimes mixed with beans for protein. The result was dense, filling, deliberately bland. Gladiators called it their strength food. Modern skeletal analysis shows they were mostly vegetarian, despite popular images of meat-eating warriors. The barley diet created subcutaneous fat, providing protection during fights. Cuts that would sever muscle in leaner fighters instead sliced through fat, reducing career-ending injuries. The gladiators knew what they were eating and why. Barley porridge was not punishment. It was professional fuel. Senators watching gladiators fight went home and ate peacock. The gladiators ate barley. The gladiators survived longer. Number 8, stuffed dormice. Third pattern break. The delicacy that best represents the strangeness of Roman cuisine. Dormice are small tree-dwelling rodents the size of hamsters. Romans raised them in special clay jars, fattening them on chestnuts and acorns. The dormice were gutted, stuffed with ground pork, pine nuts, and garum, sewn shut, rolled in honey and poppy seeds, then roasted on small skewers. The entire animal was eaten, bones and all. The taste was rich and slightly sweet, similar to suckling pig, but finer texture. A single dormouse provided 3 bites of meat. Standard serving was 6 per guest. Wealthy Romans ate them as finger food while drinking. The historian Petronius describes a banquet where dormice were served on tiny silver bridges suspended over the table. Raising dormice became so popular the Roman Senate briefly attempted to ban it as excessive luxury. The ban failed immediately. Romans kept eating dormice until the Western Empire collapsed. The practice survived longest in rural Slovenia, where dormice are still eaten in a dish resembling the ancient Roman preparation. Number 7. Cabbage. The vegetable Cato the Elder believed was the greatest food ever created, and the reason Rome conquered the world. Cabbage was not exotic or expensive, it was universal. Every household grew cabbage or bought it fresh. It was boiled, fermented, eaten raw with vinegar and salt. Cato wrote an entire section explaining cabbage virtues. He claimed it cured hangovers, prevented disease, aided digestion, and increased virility. He was not entirely wrong. Cabbage is legitimately nutritious, high in vitamin C and fiber. Roman soldiers ate it constantly. It traveled well, grew quickly, and kept them from dying of scurvy on campaigns. The cabbage that fueled Roman legions was Liburnian cabbage, named after the Liburnian coast of Croatia. It was denser and more tightly packed than modern varieties, with sharper, more peppery flavor. When Roman agricultural practices spread across Europe, Liburnian cabbage went with them. It was parent stock for most modern European cabbage varieties. Your coleslaw exists because Roman soldiers demanded vegetables that would not kill them. Number 6, Parthian chicken, the most elaborate single dish in the Roman repertoire, requiring 2 days of preparation. A whole chicken was deboned completely, keeping skin intact, bones removed through a small neck incision. The cavity was stuffed with ground meat, brain, eggs, pine nuts, pepper, and garum, the opening sewn shut. The entire bird was poached gently in wine and broth until stuffing set, then removed, dried, brushed with oil, and roasted until skin turned golden and crisp. The final dish looked like normal roasted chicken. When carved, there were no bones, only stuffing. The texture was completely uniform. Slices held together perfectly. This was Roman technical cooking at absolute peak. The recipe required skill, patience, and expensive ingredients. Only professional cooks in wealthy households attempted it. When served at banquets, Parthian chicken was meant to impress with pure technique. The message was clear. Our cooks are so skilled they can debone a chicken without tearing skin and make it look effortless. The name referenced the Parthian Empire, Rome's greatest rival. Calling it Parthian chicken was a subtle culinary insult. We have conquered even your birds. Number 5, suckling pig. The centerpiece of every major Roman feast, a suckling pig was slaughtered between 4 and 6 weeks old. When meat was still pale and tender, the entire animal was roasted on a spit for 3 hours, basted constantly with wine. honey, and garum. The skin crisped into dark mahogany shell. The meat inside stayed white and impossibly tender. Carving the pig was ceremonial. The head was presented to the most honored guest. Specific cuts were distributed according to social rank. The crispy skin was most prized and often reserved for the host. Romans understood suckling pig was expensive and inefficient. A 6-week-old pig provided little meat compared to resources required to raise it. They served it anyway because it was delicious and because the inefficiency was part of the display. When Trimalchio, the wealthy freedman in Petronius's Satyricon, serves roasted pig at his dinner party, the pig is presented whole, then carved to reveal it has been stuffed with sausages and blood pudding. The guests applaud. The entire scene is satire mocking nouveau riche excess. But the dish was real. Wealthy Romans actually did this. Number 4, Formalsala Catabia. This appeared earlier as street food. Here is the formal version senators ate. The base was the same, bread soaked in vinegar, but additions transformed it completely. Roasted chicken breast, diced fine, aged cheese from Trebula, pine nuts toasted in honey, pickled vegetables imported from Egypt, cucumber sliced so thin you could see light through it. The whole mixture was dressed with finest oil from venafrum and garum aged for 2 years. This was poverty food, elevated through expensive ingredients and precise technique. The bread still disintegrated. The texture was still deliberately soggy, but every component was the best available version of itself. Romans understood that technique mattered more than ingredients. But they also understood that best technique applied to best ingredients created something transcendent. The formal version cost 20 times more than street version. It tasted maybe 15% better. Wealthy Romans paid the difference without question. Number 3, bread and olive oil. Every single household. Bread and olive oil was the foundation of the Roman diet at every social level. Slaves ate it. Emperors ate it. The bread was sourdough made from wheat or barley, depending on wealth. The oil ranged from green first pressing from venafrum to acidic lampante oil that was technically edible. But everyone ate some version every day. The taste was simple: slightly sour bread, fruity or bitter oil, sometimes salt. That was the entire dish. Romans ate it for breakfast. They ate it between meals. Soldiers on campaign carried hard bread and oil as rations. It was portable, did not spoil, and provided enough calories to function. The poet Horace wrote about eating bread and oil in his villa as the perfect simple meal. Emperor Augustus ate bread and oil on days when he was too busy for formal meals. It was the most democratic food in Rome. The quality varied. The price varied. But the basic combination of bread and oil connected every single person in the empire. When Rome fell and the empire collapsed, bread and olive oil remained. It is still eaten today across the Mediterranean in exactly the same way. Bread, oil, sometimes salt, nothing else needed. Number 2, poules. The porridge that built Rome before Rome was an empire. Before they conquered anything, before the legions, before the marble and monuments, Romans ate poules. It was made from emmer, wheat, or barley, ground coarse, boiled with water until thick, seasoned with salt, and eaten plain or with whatever vegetables or meat were available. This was the food of the early republic. Farmers ate it in the morning before working fields. Soldiers ate it cold from their packs. Families gathered around a single pot, ate together using bread to scoop from a shared bowl. The recipe was so ancient it predated written records. By the imperial period, pulse had become associated with poverty and the old ways. Wealthy Romans did not eat it, but Roman writers remembered it with reverence because it represented the simplicity and toughness they believed had made Rome great. Cato the Elder ate pulse deliberately as a political statement, rejecting the exotic luxury foods that had become fashionable. He was trying to remind Romans where they came from. The message did not take. Romans kept eating flamingo and peacock, but pulse never disappeared completely. It evolved into polenta, still eaten across Italy today. The name changed. The basic dish remained. Grain boiled with water until it becomes something more than the sum of its parts. Number 1, garum on bread. Everything on this list tells part of the story. This one tells all of it. Romans, from every social class, every region, every occupation ate bread with garum. Slaves ate the cheapest garum on the cheapest bread. Emperors ate garum aged in amphorae for 5 years on sourdough baked fresh that morning. But the basic combination was universal. The bread provided structure and calories. The garum provided flavor, salt, and protein. Together they were a complete meal that could be prepared in seconds and eaten standing. Sailors ate it. Gladiators ate it. Senators between meetings ate it. Construction workers on the Colosseum ate it during breaks. It was the meal that required no preparation and no special equipment. Just bread and a jar of fermented fish. The taste was intensely savory and salty, with the bread absorbing the liquid and becoming almost meaty in flavor. Modern recreations using archaeological recipes confirm that it was genuinely delicious if you could get past the smell. The Romans did not need to get past anything. They loved the smell. When Pompeii was buried, archaeologists found bread and jars of garum in nearly every home excavated. Rich homes, poor homes, taverns, bakeries, brothels, temples, everywhere humans lived and worked in Pompeii. There was bread and garum, because that was Rome. Not the marble, not the conchettes, the bread and the fish sauce. The rest was decoration. Drop in the comments which of these you would actually try today. Someone somewhere is probably making garum in their garage right now. And honestly, that is exactly how it should be. The empire is gone, but the food remains, and that tells you something true about what actually matters.